Here's a second air handler upstairs, and we see mold, black mold from the condensation line. If we insulated this, that would stop that. There is moisture in the overflow pan. The entry into the condensation line is not clogged, and I don't see any visual mold. However, I'm not all the way in the system. Here we see the rusted hex head screws. We see a little leakage from condensation here. We see that condensation is forming on the top, so not that big of a deal. A little bit of mold occurs because of it. Putting an insulation blanket on here and air sealing all the penetrations better would help minimize the concern of condensation, mold forming, and then these small entry points into the system. In the upstairs attic area, I'm smelling plastics, and I think this is occurring because of the higher temperature, and it's the off-gassing from the assorted building material and personal items that's creating the odor. I don't see any mold in the air distribution system, just a light layer of debris, with the exception of some mold at the HVAC unit around the coil. Here we have an open vent crawl space. These metal doors don't fit real well, so rainwater wants to enter. And you know there's a lot of activity here because of all the spiders are hanging out right here. Open vent crawl space, looks like water is bringing in the sand, or maybe that was by design, not sure. It's on top of the plastic. A lot of leaves and debris seem to be growing or being blown in here. There is this area where there's been a previous leak and black mold rather extensively. It is dry now. No insulation there. Another spot. Another spot. Another spot. Been reinforced. So it looks like it was taken care of, but the mold hasn't been dealt with. And then this mold just follows the plumbing and the electrical penetrations on into the house. As though we enter into the original crawl space, we see insulation down and we see mold growth on the joists. This just occurs because there's been high humidity in the crawl space at different times over the years. Not excessive. It's also on the wiring. So I've dropped the insulation. You can see extensive mold of different types on the joist. And then even though the floor is tight, there are still cracks, which are huge relative to the size of mold spores. So easy for the mold to get from the crawl space into the living area. Here I've traveled to, I'll call it the third crawl space quadrant. And again, extensive mold. This is a newer wood. And there's extensive mold growth on it. There's another access to go out. I'm assuming this is water. These lines, so these are just resting on the ground. They're a significant concern in regards to doing mold remediation in this crawl space. I'm afraid some of these fittings are gonna be damaged. Pretty crazy how much mold growth there is on this wood. I feel like I'm in an old Tarzan movie and a tarantula should be attacking me any time soon. This is why we don't like to have plastic as the barrier in the crawl space, because it causes condensation to form underneath. That's what all that discoloration's about. And then it sets up an environment underneath the plastic where mold and bacteria are able to grow. Massive amounts of something not good. This looks like a bacterial mat. The trouble with the bacterial mats is that they do battle with the mold and they create really nasty toxins called aflatoxins. Now this crawl space is getting special because we have areas where there's a lot of mold and you can see the rusting on the metal, but we're getting to an area where it's so tight it becomes extremely labor intensive to do any work. And I can see mold on the outside of the ducts. Occasionally they're condensating. See drip marks where there's compression on the ducts. Back in here I see where there's oxidizing on the ducts. That's what that discoloration's about. There's enough water that has taken the foil off at times. In some areas the insulation has been falling down, either because it wasn't installed as tight as it needed to be or because of moisture. And as we look up above on the subfloor, we see white rot mold that's taken hold. This discoloration in the insulation typically has to do with air movement, and then the fan itself is not air sealed, and the lack of regular insulation here is probably part of the reason why we're getting a temperature differential on that ceiling and causing mold to grow. Here the chimney goes all the way down to the crawl space and it's not air sealed, so that'll help stopping the stack effect. And then there is some signs of water staining and mold growth on the roof deck, but we think it's been fixed.
In North Carolina, there are two building codes for crawl spaces. Hopefully this video will help you decide which one is right for you. Typical open vented crawl spaces in North Carolina have moisture, mold, insect, and radon issues. This is a concern because in the summer and winter air rises. This draws damp, moldy, smelly air from your crawl space into the living areas. One solution to this is a closed crawl space, which uses 100% ground coverage, subfloor or wall insulation, a drying mechanism, or exhaust fan. A problem with plastic liners are the off-gassing of chemicals, micro-punctures created during installation, and the offensive urine odor caused by bacteria living underneath the liner. So which do you prefer, musty odors or chemical odors? Here at Indoor Environmental Systems, we prefer to use a foil foam insulation liner which covers the ground and the walls. This is the best for indoor air quality and energy efficiency, since there are no chemical odors, moisture, mold, insects, or radon, and it significantly reduces energy loss into the ground. The typical crawlspace remediation consists of mold removal, installing an insulation liner on the ground and walls, using a drying method such as a crawlspace supply vent, dehumidifier, or foundation vent exhaust fan. Mold removal depends on the extent of the contamination. Therefore, insulation may or may not be removed. colonized mold is removed in preparation for a mold treatment. Clean Seal is a non-toxic, low-odor, quick-drying coating which prevents mold growth. It comes with a manufacturer's lifetime warranty that states no toxic microorganisms shall penetrate the treated surfaces, nor shall any such microorganisms or toxic gases emerge from beneath a treated surface. Crawlspace drying mechanisms. They consist of three: the crawlspace supply vent, a dehumidifier, or an exhaust ventilation fan. Crawlspace supply vents are a low cost and no maintenance option. Crawlspace dehumidifiers provide dependable humidity control, yet require maintenance. The foundation vent exhaust fan is great because it stops this rising of pollutants from the crawlspace into the living area. The exhaust fans or fan are placed in foundation vents and come with automatic temperature and humidity controls. Other considerations may be a crawlspace drain or sump pump, diverting rainwater, as well as landscape modifications. A crawlspace drain will release rainwater from below the liner and drain away water from plumbing breaks. A sump pump may be needed if flooding or rising water is a concern. Capturing rainwater and diverting it away from the home is helpful. A simple, low-maintenance option is to divert rainwater and termites by installing a metal and stone landscape border. It's beneficial to discharge water far away from your home and use a lawnmower safe pop-up. Indoor Environmental Systems provides code-approved R13 foundation wall insulated closed crawl spaces. Our crawl spaces are energy efficient and guaranteed to not condensate or grow mold. We have the best system for indoor air quality because of no mold, radon, volatile organic compounds, or insects, and it meets the North Carolina Building Code. Indoor Environmental Systems provides indoor air quality since 1992. We are the oldest mold remediation company in Raleigh, Cary, Durham, Chapel Hill. We have best practices, lifetime warranties, and award-winning Angie's List customer service. Because of our experience, knowledge, and integrity, we can see the big picture and recommend what's best for you. Thank you from the crew at Indoor Environmental Systems.